idea that the Great Pyramid is a tomb, and only a tomb.
And then it was built in about 20 years.
23 years.
Yeah.
Because if it's the tomb of Khufu, then it had to be built in 23 years because that was his reign. Right. He would start, in theory, building it at the beginning of his reign, and it's finished by the end of his reign. That's 23 years. And in the broader span, if you look at the Fourth Dynasty pyramids, and even go back to the end of the Third Dynasty, the Pyramid of Zoser, the Step Pyramid, you find that this is a sudden emergence of incredible skills, which lasts for about 100 years, and then it goes away. It stops. The pyramids that follow the Great Pyramid of Giza, the three pyramids on the Giza Plateau, the pyramids that follow them, the Fifth Dynasty pyramids, are really poor. They're very, very poor quality workmanship. They're falling to pieces. You can hardly recognize from the outside that they're a pyramid at all. When you get inside, you do find wonderful chambers, and you do find what you don't find in any of the great pyramids, which is huge numbers of hieroglyphs and accounts of the person who was supposedly buried in that pyramid.
What do you think of Christopher Dunn's work? Christopher Dunn came on the podcast and he explained his theory that he thinks the Great Pyramid of Giza was some sort of a power plant.
I think it's a theory which deserves to be taken seriously along with other theories as to what it is. But one thing I know for sure is that the theory that it was just a tomb and nothing else is bust. That is not a satisfactory theory anymore. So we should be open to a number of possibilities. And Chris comes to this from a background of machine tool making. He's a very precise guy. He's an engineer. He understands this kind of thing. And when he looks at particularly at Saqqara, you have this thing called the Serapeum, which is an underground labyrinth. And it's got wide corridors through it, and then off each side are rooms. And in each room are these gigantic basalt boxes, which appear to have held the corpses of bulls. They're like sarcophagi for human beings, but they're on an enormous, gigantic scale, weighing hundreds of tons and cut out of the hardest possible rock, precisely engineered. Everything is exact. And it's that, amongst other things, that is attracting Chris's attention to the possibility of a lost technology in ancient Egypt. And then he asked himself the question, well, what was the Great Pyramid if it wasn't a tomb? What might it have been? And he's come to the solution that it was some kind of energy generator, some kind of power plant. And
using chemicals and creating higher.
That pyramid at Saqqara, which is suggesting that they used hydraulics to lift the big stones up inside there, and that begins to come close to the kind of technology in some ways that Chris is talking about. I think it's worth taking very seriously. I've always had great respect for Chris. I've traveled to Egypt with him, and I think he's done very important work contributing to this, and also looking at the stone vases from ancient Egypt. I remember the first time I was drawn to this mystery, which was...
You gave us one of them. This is a 3D print of
That's
one.
a 3D print of one of those.
Yeah, this is a 3D print of an actual stone vase. Yep. And it might be like not that exciting to people, like, oh, what's the big deal? What the big deal is the precision in which this was constructed with handles on it. So it couldn't have been spun on a lathe.
No.
Because it has these two handles that are also cut out of the stone.
Yeah.
And everything is precise to within thousands of a human hair, which is bananas.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense given what we are taught was the level of technology of Egypt at that time.
Now, there is some dispute of where these came from. Mm-hmm. There is some dispute about have these been made in a modern way, and has someone tried to replace...
are we looking at fakes or
Right.
hoaxes?
Are we looking at hoaxes?
Well, perhaps in some cases we are, but certainly in others, including those in the great museums in Cairo, they've now moved a lot of the content of the Cairo Museum out to a big museum at Giza, and some of it's in transition. But they have thousands of these things.
The thing is, like, even if this was modern technology, we don't know what they did.
No.
We don't know what modern technology exists that you could take an incredibly hard piece of stone and cut it into this unbelievably precise little vase with handles on it in some bizarre method that we don't know, and hollowed out the inside of it, and some of them with very thin necks and then a hollowed out inside. Like, how? How did you do that?
Very thin necks, and then this bulbous base to it.
And it's all perfect.
There's another piece which it's hard to describe, but it's got a series of 3 flanges that come across. It's like a wheel, but nobody knows what it is, and it's cut out of incredibly hard rock, or cut or shaped in some way. I've never seen a satisfactory explanation for this thing. I wish I could call up a picture, but I don't know.
Do you know what it's called?
I can't remember.
Jamie's a wizard at finding things.
I've written about it in Fingerprints of the Gods.
I bet Jamie's already found it.